Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps, to my channel, Simon Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from 80s and 90s nostalgia to horror movies and books and beyond. Plenty of stuff in between that includes as well. For this time though, guys, we're going to be talking about books! And it's going to be another one of my collection videos. So I'm going to show you the entire collection of books that I own. And these are all my winter and holiday themed books. So holiday is in Christmassy or anything that is, you know, winter holiday like. So stay right where you are. We'll go to the short intro when we come back. We will go through all the freaking massive amounts of books that I own in this category. Welcome back, guys! Dun, 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 dun. I'm so excited to talk about all of these books. Some I have read, some I have not read. Some are just winter-themed, others are more holiday-centric. I will have timestamps down below. I've got adult, I've got vintage, I've got modern, I've got middle grade. I don't really have a ton of YA. I've got nonfiction. Alright, so we'll go in categories, and we're going to start first with the books that I have read, and then we're going to go quicker as I go into the books that I have not yet read, but still fit the theme. So let's go! P.S. I am wearing a thematic shirt, even though you might just see the blue at the top and not think it's thematic, but look at this little cutie! He's a gingerbread, and he's reading in a cup of cocoa! It says, cozy up with a good book. Anyway, you can't really see it, but yes. Here's this little pom-pom. I am thematic, so don't worry.
Why is Cozy just wearing a plain blue shirt? She's not thematic!
No, bitch, I am thematic, so don't accuse me. I proved it. Forget it. First up, let's get your boy King over with, okay? King has two great winter set books that I have read that I love. We've got Misery, and this is a newer edition, of course. I love this. I think I gave it a 4.5 or a 5. And then there is The Shining. I actually did not read this edition. This is a cool vintage edition that I found recently. It's very hard to capture because of the reflective nature of this, but I read a newer edition, but this cool old school edition I literally just found a couple of months ago. And The Shining is my very favorite Stephen King book, in case you were wondering. So both of these have great winter settings, lots of tension, lots of dread, especially this one, The Shining. I think it has great mounting dread. And just a reminder, guys, if you didn't know, I am going to be hosting a Readathon, Watchathon, Activity-a-thon for the month of December coming up here, not too far from now, and I'm super stoked about it. These books will work for any of the prompts. There's lots of prompts, and it's very easy to participate. You don't even have to read winter or holiday-themed books. You could legit read whatever you want. You don't have to read horror. All the details are below in my announcement video if you are curious and have not yet heard about the event. It's called Holiday Hellathon. So, it's a creepy, crazy, fun holiday event. It's really not creepy, but whatever. Anyway, so part of our event is Santa versus Krampus is part of the concept of the event. There are no actual competitive teams, but we're just having a little fun concept about, you know, Santa squaring off with Krampus. So speaking of Krampus, the book that introduced me and really got my love of Krampus going hardcore were these two collections of short stories, both edited by the same person. So they're both edited by Kate Wolford. They're anthologies of stories from different authors, and the first one is Krampusnacht, the 12 Nights of Krampus, and the second is Tales of Krampus. He sees you when he's creepin'. I love both of these so much. I don't think enough people talk about these. You know, short story collections I'm not always the hugest fan of, but these had great stories, and they just really make you feel impressed about how many people had such different takes on Krampus and how they could fit Krampus into a short story. So, highly recommend if you've never heard of them, and if you like the idea of Krampus. Okay, and probably my very favorite Krampus book that I've ever read is Krampus the Yule Lord by Bram. I read this a few years ago. The audiobook was fantastic. Highly recommend using audio along with reading. I do still insist that you read along if you can, because there are great illustrations that show what the characters look like, in all of Brahms' books, but this one's especially cool because you see, like, jacked up Santa, because he's kind of like a muscular Santa, and you see creepy Krampus, and it's such a great story. I love this book so much. I have loved everything I have read so far by Brahms, so he's an author that I almost have dubbed a favorite. I'm trying to find the picture of the jacked Santa, but it's hard to find. Here is your boy Santa. He ain't your typical Saint Nick. Okay. I highly recommend this one. This was a 5-star read for me. Back to plain wintry books, we've got Let the Right One In. This is a vampire story, super bleak. I would look up trigger warnings. This has been adapted into both an American film and a foreign film. The foreign film came first, then the American adaptation, but the book has a little bit of differences, and I really enjoyed seeing the differences between this book and the 2 movies, because I have seen both movies. I actually rewatched the American movie last year after reading this, and really enjoyed it. I think I gave this a 4 or 4.5. Really well done, slow burn, atmospheric. Very sad, though. Like I said, look up triggers, too, because there's some heavy stuff in here. Here we have another Winterset book, Near the Bone by Christina Henry. Lots of people love this book. I wasn't, unfortunately, one of those people. I just thought it was okay, but it did definitely have some great wintry atmosphere, so if you are intrigued at all, I do encourage you guys to check it out and see if you would like it for yourselves, because most people do really enjoy this book. Here we've got The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, and I loved this book. This book was so fantastic. I almost feel like I experienced this in a blur, because I read it so quickly back when I first checked it out last year. So I can't tell you too much about the description. There is dual timelines, I believe, and it's really, really interesting, the mystery that unfolds. Parts of this feel more like a mystery thriller type of read, more so than a straight up horror book, but definitely well written, definitely worth checking out if this at all intrigues you. Next up, we've got Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell, and this is a divisive book. Some people love it, some people hate it, and other people are just meh about it. The people who dislike it do have some qualms with the indigenous representation within the book, saying that they don't think it's as fleshed out as it should be, and maybe the author shouldn't have written about that, whereas other people think it was okay. I was one of those people who just liked the scariness of some of the book. However, this book is not perfect. I think I did rate it 4.5 or 5 stars at the time I read it a few years ago, but looking back now, it isn't perfect. There's some drawn out, repetitive parts. You know, there are the people's qualms that I mentioned, so it's not absolutely 100% flawless, but I still had a good time, and the winter vibes are hardcore there and represented throughout, especially the beginning of the book. Next up, a new release from last year, we've got Schrader's Chord by Scott Leeds. This is wonderful. You've got this musical element. It's a vintage feeling modern horror story, so it just has something about it that feels very vintage horror-like, and I mean that in a complimentary way, in an awesome way. I don't know what it is about it that makes me feel that way, but just as I was reading this, that's how I felt. It takes place around Christmas time. There is a death in the family, and the father leaves his children these records. And the children play the records. I say children, they're grown-up children, but they play the records, and bad stuff starts to happen, and they have to try to stop whatever they put into motion by playing the records. Like I said, if you like music in your horror, this is totally up your alley, and it does have some cold vibes here and there. Now we're going to go into some vintage winter-themed horror. We've got Maynard's House. This was a book club pick for my book club back in January, and I did have a live chat with my friend Ollie and my friend Andrew, and we all had very different opinions about this book. It is a super slow burn, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the atmosphere was wonderful. The audiobook was great, too. Here I have a paperback old school edition, and I was gifted this awesome old school hardcover edition by a great Patreon member of mine. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Along with a whole bunch of other fantastic books, but I wanted to show off this copy because it fits perfectly in this collection video, because now I have this wonderful hardcover copy, and I just have to take this little sticker residue off, which will be very easy to remove. I just have to take some time to do it, but I love the way this hardcover looks. Look at this. Wraps around. Even a wintry photo of our author. I love it! I love it so much. So thank you once again. I really appreciate the books you send. And yeah, I enjoyed this story overall. I know not everyone did, but I had a great time with it, and I don't even really know what about it resonated with me so much, but it did. Another old school book, this is a newer edition that I own, but I do own an old school copy. It's probably like shelved on my old school shelf somewhere back here, but this is Ghost Story by Peter Straub. Super slow burn, but the atmosphere is fantastic. There's like this slow creeping dread that is just infused throughout the entire story. Very well worth it if you can handle a slow burn. It's about these old men who tell ghost stories to each other, and they all are not literally running, but metaphorically running from something from their past, and eventually we come to find out what that is. So I love it. I think it's really wonderful story, a perfect winter book. And last but not least, we've got Toady by Mark Morris. This is probably not only my favorite winter set book, but one of my favorite books of all time. I have put it in my top 20 horror books of all time video that I released. Can't remember if it was last year or earlier this year, but this did make my top 20 list. So I'm holding up this because this is actually the American edition of Toady. So if you own the Horror Club, you technically own a slimmed down version of Toady. It's slimmed down by about 200 pages or so. There may be a way for people to find this story soon, but I can't say too much about it. But if there is a chance where this becomes available again, I will be shouting from the rooftops about it. You will hear it from me. I will be telling you to check out this book if it's ever available in a new edition, because this is such a great winter horror book. It has It vibes, but like I said, make it winter. We are following these group of kids in England in the wintertime, and they have to fight this big bad. And there's some great horror imagery, probably the best horror imagery I've ever read. This is such an underrated book. I've talked about it many times on my channel. I won't continue to talk too long about it here, but just stay tuned to my channel, because I will be letting you know if this ever gets released in a new edition, because I think more people should check out not only Mark Morris as a whole, but definitely the book Toady and some of his other books as well that are now out of print, like this one. Now let's talk about some winter-themed middle grade, and all of this is vintage middle grade. So first, let's start off with a Goosebumps. We've got Beware the Snowman, and there's a reveal in here. I have it marked, the reveal. It's hilarious. I laughed out loud. I can't really compare what the reveal's about because it technically spoils it, and you could guess what the reveal is. But oh my god, I laughed so hard at the reveal in this book. It was such a fun time, and definitely super snowy vibes, so this would be a perfect read for December, January, February, all the cold months. Next up, we've got two Goosebump knockoff books from back in the day. We've got Snow Day, which is a Spine Tingler's book, and then we've got The Abominable Snow Monster, and this is a Graveyard School book. So I have read each of these, and Snow Day was weird. It kind of went into some crazy places that I did not expect. It was a little more in-depth than I thought. I was like, whoa, this went to weird places. Whereas this one was a little more standard, you know, big old snow monster. This is not like that at all. So this cover's a little deceiving, but the inside is definitely fascinating for certain reasons. But anyway, both enjoyable, you know. They are what they are. They're old school, middle grade books, but definitely appropriate for wintertime. Okay, now we're going to segue into holiday books that I have read. So first off, a children's picture book. We've got Mothman's Merry Cryptid Christmas. This is by Andrew Schaefer. And spoiler, this is not the only book by Andrew Schaefer that I own that is Christmas themed, but this one's so short and cute, and it rhymes. I still do have to get the Halloween themed version, and I have to do that at some point. Sticking with Andrew Schaefer, we've got his other Christmas-themed book. Here we have Secret Santa. I loved this book so much. This book is underrated in my opinion. It says,
"All it wants for Christmas is you."
And it's about a woman who is out of work trying to find a job in the publishing area for months. Finally, she gets a job at a prestigious publishing company, and there are a bizarre set of circumstances and a firm mandate that leads to her hire there. She must find the next horror superstar to compete with Stephen King, Anne Rice, and Peter Straub, because this is set during the 80s. That's another reason why I really like it. And also you get like the inner workings of a publishing company, which I think is extra fun if you are a book lover, like most of us are. And yeah, this is just really fun. Lots of great vibes. Not 100% serious at all times, but still, it's just a fun ride. Next up, let's talk Fear Street! Fear Street! Alright, so we've got a couple here. Of course, I think the most famous Fear Street Christmassy book would be Silent Night, and then there's Silent Night 2. I don't know if there's a 3, but I don't own 3. But I have read the first and second book. The first one's amazing. If you're looking for a great Fear Street book, this one's so good. I love this book so much. I enjoyed it so thoroughly back when I read it quite a while ago now. Next up, we've got The Best Friend. I think this one's a great one too. I don't really remember Christmas being a huge part of it, but it is. Next up, a book I have not read, and that is Cheerleaders, the New Evil. I believe this is the last Cheerleaders book. Well, last vintage Cheerleaders book. And it's got Santa on it, so I'm guessing it takes place in winter. Have not read it yet, though. And finally, one that I have read, The New Year's Party. And this one was fun, too. And I read it around New Year's time, so very appropriate. Also, some Fear Street winter-themed books. We've got Ski Weekend and Truth or Dare. Next up, we've got a short story collection by Ronald Kelly that I did read. This is Season Creepins, Tales of Holiday Horror. I just thought this was okay, but it is worth it to own it because of the awesome cover, in my opinion. However, I have liked Ronald Kelly's full-length novels quite a bit, so even though this didn't hit 100% for me, it was still enjoyable and still a fun thematic holiday read. Sticking with horror, we've got Nosferatu by Joe Hill. I love this book. I read this a couple of years ago and was thoroughly transfixed by it. You really come to hate the main villain in this. And if you read this and want more in that universe, we have Wraith. And we follow the villain from Nosferatu in this graphic novel. So, lots of stuff that could be fun and darker for holiday time. There's a land where it's Christmas all the time in this book, hence why I lumped it in with like the Christmassy books. Now for a vintage book, this is Black Christmas by Thomas Altman. I just read this last year. It is more of a thriller and a police procedural in a way. We do have this cop looking for a murderer. People are getting killed around this small town, and who could be doing it? So, this one had a great ending, but it did take some dedication to get through reading it. It wasn't perfect, but I'm still glad I read it. Now for some picture books. These are 2 picture books by Dean Koontz. One is Santa's Twin, and one is Robot Santa. That's the sequel. So I have not always been the biggest fan of Dean Koontz's adult books. There are some that work for me, others that don't. I haven't read that much adult stuff by him, so I've got to read more to really determine if I'm a huge fan of his adult fiction. However, these children's books are incredible. Even if you don't like Dean Koontz as an adult writer, these are amazing. All of them rhyme, and there's like some humor to them, really great illustrations. Just, I can't say enough about these and how great they are. So if you like thematic picture books, you really got to check these out because they're fantastic. Really well done. Alright, and we're closing out the books I have read with a romance book. This is my favorite romance book, still, after a couple of years, having just gotten into romance. I have read quite a few since I first read this one. This was my very first one, and I love this one so much. I think it's fantastic. It's got emotion. Doesn't have a lot of spice, so if you're looking for that, that might be missing for you. It's got humor. It's got, like, the holiday vibes, because it's Christmas time, and this girl accidentally summons the spirit of Christmas by playing Mariah Carey's Christmas album backwards on accident and spilling some wine on it or something. I am going to be rereading this in December with my friend Tanya, and I'm so excited! I'm so excited. I love this book so much. So if you're a holiday romance fan, I do think this one deserves more love and more attention because it's so funny. And I love, like, a rom-com that also does humor as well as it does heart. And I feel like this one does that. So this is a 5-star for me. And I've read more by Sarah Hogel since then, and I've enjoyed more of her books, but this is still my favorite of hers. So, and again, still my favorite overall romance book too. It's just so enjoyable. There's just something I love about it. Now let's get into the winter books that are more modern that I have not read. Alright, so we've got quite a few here. I'm not going to go through some of the synopses very much in detail because we've got a lot to get through. We've got Where the Dead Go to Die, and this is a zombie-ish story, post-infection Chicago, Christmas time, inside the hospice where a lot of these infected people are staying. and men and women live out their final days in comfort, segregated from society, then humanely terminated before fate turns them into marrow-craving monsters known as Smilers. Outside the walls, rabid protesters swarm with signs caught up in the heat of their hatred. So this apparently takes a look at the politics and the emotions taking place during this society during this time. Next up, we've got Native Fear by C.F. Page. This is a chunker. It says,
Winter 2017, LA Torrance on the run and hundreds of miles from his home winds up passing through Coyote Village, Michigan. If he'd taken a left or a right at the main street intersection, he'd be fine. But unaware of the ill-omened genius loci of the Elkhorn Ranch, he went straight. He went up Old Willow Road, and not being a local, he hadn't known about the sinister rumors, everything ranging from satanic worship to scientific experiments and stranger things.
this sounds great. I wish it wasn't so chunky. But anyway, I will read it one year. Here we've got a more dark book, not as much horror, but I think more dark fantasy. We've got The Nutcracker Bleeds by Liani Lenore. I love the cover. It says, The Nutcracker Bleeds is a mature, unusual, and horrific retelling of the classic Nutcracker story. Next up, we've got a winter thriller. This is An Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapina.
Winter in the Catskills, Mitchell's Inn is the perfect setting for a relaxing, maybe even romantic weekend away. Soon, though, one of the guests turns up dead. It looks like an accident, but when a second guest dies, the others start to panic.
Here we've got another story collection. This is Hark, the Herald Angels Scream, edited by Christopher Golden. I have not heard the best things about this, but I'm glad I own it for the cover alone at least. Even if the stories within aren't the best, I'll still give it a go one day. I believe you can find this story on KU. This is Snow Shark. I had to own it because I love sharks. And a winter set shark story is kind of unique in my opinion. So this is by Brian G. Berry. A lot of his books, like I said, are on KU. I think this is one of them. And I'm really eager to get to this. I know my friend Michelle from Michelle's Melancholia read this and said it was a lot of fun. Next up, some cozy horror. We've got a Darcy Coates book. I've really only read one book by Darcy Coates, and I didn't absolutely love it. It was her thriller book. I'm hoping to like some of her other books. This is Voices in the Snow, and I've heard great things about this, so I'm hoping I will like it. Next up, we've got Dead of Winter. I believe this is also a short story collection. This is by Keelan Patrick Burke. Yes, 7 stories. Next up, I heard about this book from my friend Alex, the Bookubus. Check out her channel. She is fantastic. This is Frostbite by Angela Slavane. And this has like a 90s kind of vibe to it. Look at the colors. It says,
Remember the 90s? Well, the town of Demise, North Dakota doesn't, and they're living in the year 1997 because an alien worm hitched a ride on a comet crash-landed in the town's trailer park and is now infecting animals with a memory loss-inducing bite, and right before Christmas.
I really want to get to this year. It's on my TBR, so spoiler to my TBR, but I just love the sound of the premise so much. Sounds like a ball. Next up, we've got a winter-themed book that is a book 2 of a series. This is part of the Small Spaces series. This is Dead Voices by Catherine Arden. And you can see from the cover, it definitely takes place during winter time. And I just recently read the first book, loved it, 5 stars, cannot wait to read this one, hopefully coming up in December. Here we've got another modern-themed winter book. This is The Beast of Nightfall Lodge. Also sounds like a boatload of fun. It says there's a bloodthirsty creature on the loose, leaving a trail of bodies in its wake. Now a wealthy big game hunter has offered a reward for its capture. And this was given to me by Andrew over at It Came From the Page. Thank you, Andrew! I appreciate it, and I can't wait to read this. Now let's turn the page and go on to some vintage winter books. This is a new edition, but the book is old, or the story is old. This is Who Goes There, the novella that formed the basis of The Thing. And I'm so intrigued to see how the story reads compared to, there's 2 different movie adaptations, but compared specifically to the Carpenter movie, which is one of my favorite winter movies and favorite horror movies of all time. So I bought this a while ago. We'll see whenever I'm able to get to it, but just to compare and contrast, I love doing that. So that'll be a fun thing whenever I do get to it. Next up, we've got White Death by Alan Wayne.
Survival can have a terrible price.
Then we've got Homecoming by Matthew J. Costello. A fast-paced, hard-edged killer of a book, gripping, compelling, says Dean Koontz. Look at those creepy eyes. Here we've got Sibling, or The Sibling. I don't know if this is really a Christmassy book or if it just has a Christmassy cover because there is a little present on the cover. And this is a book that has a fantastic step back cover art. The dude opens the present and he looks sinister as hell and it's all bloody. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
He was young and sensual, yet demonic and ungodly. Locked in the throes of forbidden love, he was driven by black, hellish forces from beyond the grave, and the evil he did, the horrors he wreaked on one famous family, would terrify the world for all time to come.
Next up, Blizzard by Michael C. Norton. I love this cover, one of my favorite covers. It says,
Unnatural hunger. Inside the house, a group of childhood friends gathered for a Christmas party, bringing with them smoldering passions as well as presents. Outside, the snow began to pile up, trapping them in the worst blizzard in history. What lurked in the storm was not human. It was a mutant thing with a ravenous appetite for human flesh and an insatiable thirst for hot, rich blood.
Here we've got Demon Shadows, another great cover. This is by Michael B. Sirota.
As icy winds tear at the flesh, an age-old evil feeds on the soul.
Here we've got Crawling Dark by Pauline Dunn. Apparently, this is a ripoff completely of one of Dean Koontz's books, but the cover is fantastic. One day I'd like to read both and see how much of a ripoff it truly is, because apparently it's pretty hardcore. Next up, Winter Wake by Rick Hetula. Another great cover. Kind of a chunker. This is available as an ebook as well from Crossroad Press, I believe. So that is pretty neat. You can have access to it if you don't own a vintage copy. Next up, I've actually heard decent things about this one. Here is Ancients by Carl Largent. It's a tongue twister. And again, just because it has a fantastic cover doesn't always mean the inside is good when you're talking about vintage books, but because I've heard good things about this one, I do want to eventually read it for sure, and it sounds perfect. It sounds like it would be very, very cold. Another book I've heard good things about is It's Loose by Warner Lee, and once again, a great cover, of course. Next up, we've got Carnivore by Lee Clark. I've read a book by Lee Clark and really enjoyed it, so can't wait to get to this one day. And a book that my friend Andrew gave me, yet again, I believe he gave this to me, Snowman by Norman Bogner.
They said such a creature could not exist. They were wrong.
Next up, we've got 2 editions of The Thief of Always, which I think has elements of different seasons, and also has elements of different holidays, including Halloween and Christmas, so I'm lumping it in here. I do assume there's going to be some wintry things and Christmassy things, especially because the back of the paperback has some snow-covered building here. And whenever I do read it, I'm going to use this trash copy, because this is a bad copy of a paperback, and I'm going to try to keep this hardcover, it's illustrated, keep this pristine. Here we've got Dark Xmas, so these are 100-word holiday horror stories. I probably will read a few of these on sprints every now and then throughout our Holiday Hell event. Whenever I do sprints, I'll read a couple, because they're so short, each one is just like, look, barely anything. Really fun. Next up, this is a gift from my friend Kat over at Kat's Novel Adventures. Thank you so much, Kat. I actually have this on audio as well, so I'm hoping this year I can finally finish it. I've read a few stories from this in previous years, but this could be the year I finish it. This is a collection, and I'm so excited to own it just because of the name, because the name's cool, the cover's cool, and Kat knows how much I love the movie Christmas Evil, so she's like, I found a book that's also called Christmas Evil, so pretty darn cool. Next up, we've got Jingle Hell, a rather disturbing Christmas Carol-ish take. So it's like Christmas Carol in hell, or in the underworld, which sounds like a lot of fun. Next up, I remember finding this with my friend Rachel while we were hanging out together up in Oregon, and this is Holiday Madness, 13 Tales for Halloween, Christmas, and all occasions. So this must be just different holidays represented in here, not just Christmas, even though the cover does have a jack-o'-lantern with a Santa hat on it. Next up, we've got Santa Claus Comes Tonight by Jack Beaumont. Look at this gnarly cover. Very, very short. I'm excited. I will definitely be getting to this year. Here we've got a cute little Krampus-themed middle grade book. This is The Christmas Curse of Krampus. Moving on to some nonfiction and then into movie-related books. First up, we've got Christmas-related horror books. Gift Wrapped and Gutted, the trashiest Christmas horror movies ever made. And A Scary Little Christmas, a history of Yuletide horror films from 1972 to 2020. This is by Matthew C. Dupuy? Don't know. Another Krampus-themed book, we've got Gerald Cole's Krampus and Friends, Tales of Terrifying Christmas Monsters from Around the World. And another gift from my friend Kat over at Kat's Novel Adventures that is Krampus-themed. We've got The Fright Before Christmas. I am so excited to get to this one. I've heard such good things about it. There's fantastic illustrations. Yes. Thank you, Kat. I love it. I'm so excited to read it this year. Here we've got another Krampus-themed nonfiction book, The Krampus, and the old dark Christmas roots and rebirth of the folkloric devil. Next up, we've got a TV-related nonfiction book, Festivus, the Book, a complete guide to the holiday for the rest of us. Seinfeld reference. I love Seinfeld. I love Festivus. So, here we go. Here we've got a graphic novel that is a tie-in or a retelling of Krampus the movie. So it says Krampus, Shadow of St. Nicholas. Inspired by the major motion picture. I'm hoping to read this year too. Next we've got a tie-in to the Nightmare Before Christmas world. We've got Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. I don't know when this is set, but because Nightmare Before Christmas reminds me of Halloween and Christmas, both at once, I'm including this in the holiday books that I'm showing, so hopefully it's kind of accurate, but I don't know. Here we've got a newer novelization of an old school movie. This is Silent Night, Deadly Night, and there have been quite a few novelizations from this company. It's called Stop the Killer. They have done one for Happy Birthday to Me, which is one of my favorite slasher movies. They've done one for Basket Case, which I have. They've done quite a few, but I have yet to read any written by this author. All of them are almost always written by this author, so hopefully the quality is good and I will actually like it, but I do know that the cover is amazing, and it comes with a book plate, and the inside flap is nice. The book itself is nice, so I am happy with it. And here is the back cover. Another novelization, we've got 30 Days of Night. Now, originally, 30 Days of Night is a graphic novel series, I believe. Then they made it into a movie, and this novelization is of the movie. So this novelization is different from the graphic novel that the movie is based on. So just don't get confused. They're three separate entities when it comes to 30 Days of Night. I love the film, so I had to get the novelization based upon the film, and who wrote this is Tim LeBon. Here we have a junior novelization of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Like I said, this movie reminds me of both Christmas and Halloween, so I'm lumping this in here. Next we have Gremlins. We've got the regular novelization, like, you know, adult-sized, and then we've got a junior novelization. Cute! So the adult one is by George Gipe, G-I-P-E, and this little one is also by George Gipe. And this little one has pictures. Oh, and cute illustrations! Look, Gizmo. Oh, he looks extra cute there. I'm sure this one has some pictures too. It does have pictures, but it doesn't have the cute illustrations in the adult version. This one's published by Avon. Okay, and I think this is kind of cool. Here are 3 different versions of Home Alone 2 novelization. So we've got 2 junior ones, both of Home Alone 2, which is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Yes, specifically Home Alone 2, not Home Alone. I like Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So here are 2 different covers of Home Alone 2 for the junior novelization. Had to get both. Just recently found this one on a trip with my friends Cameron and Benjamin when I went to visit them. And I also found this one, a point horror version of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So clearly it's much bigger. I don't care if it's just a different edition. I still wanted it. And one day I will read them, I'm sure. I don't know why I kept the receipt in there, but just ignore it. Beat that, you little trout sniffer. Buzz says that in Home Alone 2. It's one of my favorite lines. There's so many great lines in that movie, though. Alright, now let's go to vintage YA that is winter or Christmas themed. It's a mix of both. Here we've got Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Santa's Little Helper. She's riding on a vacuum. Alright, we've got, that was a gift from Cameron and Benjamin. This is another gift from Cameron and Benjamin. We've got Sweet Valley High, The Evil Twin. I keep thinking there's something behind it, but there's not. And it's definitely Christmas themed, as you can see from the cover. We've got The Snowman by R.L. Stine. We've got Freeze Tag by Caroline B. Cooney. Love this cover. We've got The Christmas Killer by Patricia Windsor. Sleigh Ride by Nick Barron. She looks so ridiculous in this picture, in this cover, in this illustration, whatever. It's ridiculous. 2 winter-seeming books from Nicole Davidson, and this is Crash Landing and Winter Kill. Kind of in that same vein, we've got Dream Stalker by Barbara Steiner. And not sure if this is YA or middle grade, but this is Survive the Blizzard. And this is by Jim O'Connor. Vintage middle grade time, and we're going to start off with just winter-themed middle grade. Alright, we've got Zombie Winter. I think this is more modern middle grade. I don't know, let me see the year. 2011, still pretty old school in my opinion. Babysitter's Little Sister, number 34. We've got Karen's Snow Day. We've got The Babysitter's Club, super special number 3. Babysitter's Winter Vacation. And I love their clothes. I love their winter clothes so much. Special postcard inside, and I believe, oh, it's still there. Season's greetings. I think Cameron and Benjamin gave me this. Thank you so much. Here we've got Fright Time. It's a collection of different stories, but there is a winter-themed one on the front, so thought I would include it with the winter vintage middle grade books. Here we've got a book from 1996, Friendly Corners, number 4. This is Nasty the Snowman. You open it up and creepy snow dude flying at these kids. Alright, now for some hockey books! We've got 2 Slapshots books. These were given to me by Cameron and Benjamin as well. This is number 2, and this is number 4. Then we've got Hot Shot on Ice. And going into Nickelodeon-themed winter books, we've got Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Horrifying Hockey Team. I actually did read this one and really enjoyed it quite a bit. It was fun. It was, kind of predictable, but I don't know. There was something about it that I really enjoyed. Definitely had winter vibes, too. Back to books I have not read. We've got another Are You Afraid of the Dark book, and this one is The Tale of the Mogul Monster. Very snowy cover. Now we've got some Bailey School Kids books, and these are more Christmas related versus just winter themed. We've got The Abominable Snowman Doesn't Roast Marshmallows. Elves Don't Wear Hard Hats. Mrs. Claus Doesn't Climb Telephone Poles. And Santa Claus Doesn't Mop Floors. I love how you can reverse it. Another gift from Cameron and Benjamin, we've got Haunting Christmas Tales by Joan Akin and others. Great toy-themed cover here. Next up, we've got Help, I'm Trapped in Santa's Body! We've got The House Without a Christmas Tree. Another Goosebumps, but this is one I have not read. This is Goosebumps Most Wanted, The 12 Screams of Christmas. Now, to end everything off, some Goosebump knockoffs. We've got a Graveyard School book, The Fright Before Christmas. I still have to read this one. And last but not least, I wanted to show you this really cool French edition of this Bone Chillers book given to me by my friend Benjamin. They didn't make an American version of this, so this is a Christmas-themed Bone Chillers, but you can see this cover is in French. So this is what the normal Bone Chillers look like, the American version. So you can see the font style's the same, but of course it's in French over here. And it's kind of similar in spine, but not totally, but very cool. I love that I own this. Thank you so much, Benjamin. I treasure this. I just wanted to show everyone, next to one of the original American copies, how it looks. Alright, oh my god. That was everything, guys. I know that was a long video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. If you have read any of these books that I have shown that I have not read, please tell me which ones you have read and if you think I should prioritize them, because I will do so if you think I should. Also, let me know if you've read any of the books that I did read and talk about in this video as well. Let me know your thoughts down below if you liked it or disliked it or whatever you want to say about it. And if you just want to tell me you were here but you don't know what to leave, let's leave a Santa Claus or Mrs. Claus emoji, and I already did this before, but also a devil emoji or an evil emoji for Krampus, so, and then maybe a snowflake emoji for winter. So any of those emojis or all of them, it doesn't matter. I'm just so thankful that you guys stopped by to check out my videos. It really means so very much to me. But for this time, guys, that is it for me. Till next time, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys.